Hello. Today I want to talk a little bit about the differences between what we refer to as tics and what we call often stimming. So some individuals may exhibit a behavior called stimming. This is a behavior that tends to be repetitive, and people seem to engage in it more frequently when they are under significant stress. That stress could be due to events, expectations, or just noise, commotion, too much sensory input. So the stimming may look somewhat similar to tics at times, and then both behaviors can be confusing to people who observe them and don't understand why this behavior is happening. However, there are some things that appear to be significantly different between them. And I want to also be really clear in stressing that these are the things that appear to be the case with both of these behaviors. Our knowledge about these is still developing, and we're beginning to learn perhaps more about ways in which they may have similarities. But at the moment, what we seem to understand about them, stimming may be an enjoyable behavior for the person who's doing it. They may get enjoyment from it, or it may just feel good for them. One of the ways that it can do that is by regulating the amount of sensory stimulation that the person is receiving. So if they're hearing too much noise or there's too much commotion and they begin stimming, they may be doing that partially to just kind of regulate their own brain activity and the amount of input that they're receiving. And so it may be comforting for them. And tics don't really appear to have that same comforting quality to them. A person tends to engage in a tic in response to the urge that comes before it, which is generally described as uncomfortable. And tics tend to happen more in a burst rather than continuously for a period of time. Tics appear to be less responsive to external environment than stimming, which seems to happen more consistently in response to overexcitation or overstimulation. Tics can be affected by the environment, but they tend to be more what we would describe as a burst pattern of behavior. Like they happen for a little bit, and then they stop. And then they happen a bit, and then they stop. Whereas stimming may show up and just kind of stays there until the situation has resolved or the person is feeling more regulated. And so those are some of the most critical differences that appear to be between these. In both cases, there's not really a need necessarily to try to correct or stop the behavior. So other people, if they attempt to tell the individual who is stimming or who is having tics to stop doing that, they may just aggravate that more and increase the person's stress level. So in either case, unless we're genuinely concerned about harm coming from these behaviors, we shouldn't really be trying to stop the behaviors. However, they may draw attention to the person, right? So they look maybe atypical. Other people might notice them and they might stare, things like that. And we don't necessarily feel good about that, especially if it's, for example, our own child who's doing it. We might feel very concerned about how other people are reacting. For the person who is stimming, this may be something that is helping them to regulate themselves in that situation. And unless you have another behavior you can offer them to achieve the same result, then maybe, if possible, we should let them do that behavior. With tics, we don't want to try to insist they stop either, though the person who's experiencing tics often experiences some discomfort from them as well, like some social discomfort, that is. They may feel a little bit self-conscious or embarrassed. And they might like to be able to stop them, but really it's not so easily done. So those are some of the main differences between tics and stimming. These behaviors can appear quite similar at times, and with some tics, the frequency may be so high and the nature of the behavior looks so similar to stimming that you cannot really tell the difference. Usually, though, tics tend to occur more in a burst. The variety of behaviors is greater. So with tics, as we say, anything the body can do is a viable target for a tic. So it might show up as a tic. whereas stimming tends to be more certain types of repetitive behaviors that are more limited in scope and last in a more consistent or continuous manner. All right, so if you have any questions, feel free to send me a message at galleon.tube@gmail.com, and I'll try to get back to you. And that's all for today. Thank you.